Thomas Jefferson once said, "All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent." Don't remain silent. You've just jumped in the Pickle Barrel with author, speaker, commentator, and show host Bill Pickle.
Say good morning, Bill. Maybe Bill's microphone is muted. Hello, Bill. Where are you, Bill? Well, I see.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Hey, good morning. I tell you what, we had some issues here. We had a power surge just a minute ago. I don't know if it's because of the house they're building across the street. They got all kinds of people over there doing things. But about 7:57, I started trying to get into live, and everything just went dark. I mean, everything. Lights, cameras, everything. And I heard my wife in there saying, "Bill, the power's off." And I said, "No fake, Jake." So anyway, it's back up, and we're very happy about that. Hey, glad to have you here in the Pickle Barrel. We got a ton. When I say a ton, I'm talking about we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. Now, some of this is going to be some of the normal things that are going on around us. Some of it's not. But I still want you to join us here in the Pickle Barrel and take part in the conversation. And we do have some deep things, and I'm sure we're going to have some conflicting ideas and conversation. But you know what? That's what we're all about, folks. You know, if you've got something you want to talk about and it's something that people may not agree with you, and you're getting blocked on Facebook here and there, you're getting friends to shut you down, you know, as long as it's a civil conversation, bring it on over here. Bring it on over here, because we take on any and all issues. And now, well, we're not going to say I may always agree with you, but I will always be willing to discuss it with you. Is that fair enough? I hope so. Well, listen, we'd love to have you join us. You can do it in our chat room at AmericanPatriotRadio.com. And I encourage you to do that. Go over there and join the group. That way you'll be brought up to date all day long about things that are coming up, any kind of news breaks, any kind of new programs. And we have new programs coming up. I mean, you better pay attention, because we got some good things coming. And then you can also, right here on Facebook Live, of course. But even more importantly, I say more importantly because I like to have some interaction, okay? Call in. Take part in the conversations live on air. And you can do that by calling in at 712-770-4160. And when you do that, you'll get a little ding, and it'll say enter, and you enter your little participant pin, you know, the login. Go 263-151 pound. And then you'll be listening. You'll be in the queue there. When you get ready to talk, just hit *6, and guess what? You're going to be infamous, or at least maybe famous, because you'll be talking on air in the Pickle live worldwide, thanks to the World Wide Web. And so we're glad to have you here. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, I tell you what, it has been a busy, busy, busy week, and we have heard so much about so many different things. We've got the Charlottesville thing still in the air. We've got business leaders rebelling. We got political people rebelling. We got personal rights, right to public assembly, rights to free and open speech. We got all of that under attack. And folks, I tell you, you know, don't take this lightly. Do you hear me? Do not take this lightly. You know, I think a lot of people fail to understand that, you know, each and every time somebody comes up and starts fighting against people, groups, or whoever, about what they say, what they do in assembly, it hurts all of us. Now then, I have to agree that when these people get together and we have incidents that take place like we did in Charlotte, regardless of who's at fault, okay, regardless of who's at fault, all of us pay the ultimate price. We get shut down. We get shut down. And so what I want to do at this point, I want to go back through history here a little bit, and we're going to show you a couple of places and a couple of events that took place that changed history also. And then we're going to talk about what's going on here today. 1743, if you believe it or not, Sweden was at war with Russia. Finland was at war with Russia. Sweden cedes southeast Finland to Russia, ending that war. So there. Let's give up part of our area and we'll call it peace, okay? Napoleon Bonaparte in 1812, you know, this is like 80 some odd years later, defeats the Russians at the Battle of Smolensk during the Russian retreat to Moscow. War. You know, why is it we have so much war? 1863. I'm not going to go there. 1863. On this date in history, Union gunboats attacked Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina for the first time. And, folks, if you've never been to Charleston, South Carolina, you owe it to yourself to go out to Fort Sumter. They have little boats that will take you out there to the island, and you get out and you can tour it. And when you get there, you'll be amazed exactly how small that place is. I was shocked the first time I went out there so many years ago. I was shocked at how small it was, but, you know, all the barracks and that kind of stuff is long gone. But the outer walls and some of the ornaments are still there. The brick walls, brick and stone walls are still there around the fortress. And they still have the original cannons that were used in place there. And, you know, they're huge. They're big. And they still have the cannonballs with an S that lodged into the walls of that fortress. Still, it lodged in the walls there. You can see where they hit and didn't explode. You know, they're still there. And, of course, a lot of them were not explosive. They were there to demolish, you know, tear down. And, you know, and we were lucky enough that we were there during the flag ceremony, and we got to assist with the raising of the flag at Fort Sumter, which I thought was kind of cool. And you can overlook the Charleston Harbor there and everything. And I'll tell you something else a lot of people don't realize. It was not the Union or the Confederate, quote-unquote, the Confederate Army that fired on Fort Sumter. A lot of people don't realize it was actually the cadets at the college there, the Citadel. It was the cadets, excuse me, that fired upon Fort Sumter that started all the chaos. And so a little bit of history there. And several years ago, my wife and I, on one of our little road trips, took a little side trip. And we said, wonder where that one goes. And so We was at a Y in the road, and we took the Y, and about a block down after we took that Y, there was this monument on the side of the road. I'm assuming it's still there. I hope no one has torn it down yet. But it was the grave and a monument to the gentleman that fired that first shot on Fort Sumter. He was born and raised right there in that area. And I thought that was kind of cool. By accident. You never know what you might find on these low spark spawn of the moment trips. Okay, so let's see here. What else? Sicily, 1943, Allied forces completed the conquest of Sicily, getting that back into the group. Let's see here. 1945, upon hearing confirmation that Japan has surrendered, Sukarno proclaims Indonesia's independence. 1960, Americans Francis Gary Powers pleads guilty in his Moscow trial for spying over the Soviet Union in a U-2 plane. That was big, big, big back then. Some of you wouldn't remember that. Some of us do. 1978, 3 Americans complete the first crossing of the Atlantic in a balloon. Now, that would be cool, wouldn't it? That would be cool. We did a balloon over the Sahara and the Valley of the Pharaohs, where, you know, all the pharaohs are buried there. Well, not all of them, but, you know, majority of them are buried there in Egypt. And that was really cool, going up and seeing the Nile on one side. You could see just how small of an area has trees and vegetation and stuff from the Nile to where the desert starts. A lot of people don't realize in most places along that direction, down that Nile, there really is only about a mile to 5 miles of greenery on either side of the Nile River. And then it is nothing but sand for thousands of miles, folks. Okay. 1987, 93-year-old Rudolf Hess, former Nazi leader and deputy to Adolf Hitler, is found and hanged to death in prison there. Oh, boy. Let's see. Bill Clinton in 1998. Bill Clinton admits to the American public that he had an affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. You know, it's been a couple of years since I've heard anything about Monica Lewinsky. How about that? She finally faded from history, except in the text. Let's see. Moscow top court banned a gay pride events in Russia's capital city for 100 years. That was in 2012, and I don't know if they've had a gay pride march since then, but I don't think that 2112 is here yet, so maybe they're holding it still. Born on this day in history, Davy Crockett was born, American frontiersman and politician who died in the defense of the Alamo. Samuel Goldwyn, American movie mogul who helped start MGM, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. And let's see, Marcus Garvey was born in 1887. I do recognize that name. He was the Jamaican-born nationalist who advocated the departure of the African Americans back to Africa. 1890, Harry Hopkins, who organized the Works Project Administration, WPA, under President Franklin Roosevelt, was born on this day. Mae West. Oh, my gosh, Mae West. You know, I haven't seen any tributes or any films or anything like that on her in a long, long time. I wonder if her history has finally bit the dust in American society, but she was the original TV movie bomb. I mean, to tell you, she's an American actress in burlesque, vaudeville, Broadway, and movies, you know, back when they were silent, and then she got into some of the talking movies. How about that? John Kerr, basketball coach, was born in 1932. Robert De Niro, I'm not going to tell you who that is. Yeah, everybody knows who Robert De Niro is, American actor. I just told you, didn't I? Let's see. Judith Reagan, controversial book publisher, editor, talk show host. Yeah, she was. Sean Penn, Another one that's been made it big and is a little controversial at times. And in 1965, Robert Manry, copy editor of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who sailed solo in a sailboat from Falmouth, Massachusetts to Falmouth, Cornwall, England, was born. 1965, young whippersnapper. So those are some of the things that happened this day in history. Okay, let's start talking. Let me tell you what. Let me do this. Let me check the chat room real quick and see who's in there. I have a clip of Rand Paul explaining health care. Well, I tell you what, Dave, why don't we do this? Why don't you go ahead and play that clip, and we'll just start the day off with that. How's that sound, my friend?
With regard to the idea of whether or not you have a right to a health care, you have to realize what that implies. It's not an abstraction. I'm a physician. That means you have a right to come to my house and conscript me. It means you believe in slavery. It means that you're going to enslave not only me, but the janitor at my hospital, the person who cleans my office, the assistants who work in my office, the nurses. If you have a right to their services, basically once you imply a belief in a right to someone's services, do you have a right to plumbing? Do you have a right to water? Do you have a right to food? You're basically saying that you believe in slavery. You're saying you believe in taking and extracting from another person. Our founding documents were very clear about this. You have a right to pursue happiness, but there's no guarantee of physical comfort. There's no guarantee of concrete items. In order to give something concrete or someone's surface, you got to take it from someone. So there's an implied threat of force. If I'm a physician in your community and you say you have a right to health care, do you have a right to beat down my door with the police, escort me away, and force me to take care of you? That's ultimately what the right to free health care would be. If you believe in a right to health care, you're believing in basically the use of force to conscript someone to do your bidding. Now, just because it's a noble thing to believe that we are obligated as Christians, we are obligated through the Hippocratic Oath, we have always done this. Since the beginning of modern medicine, we have always provided 100% access. I do it in exchange for privileges. I do it because I believe in the Hippocratic Oath, but my hospital also says to me, you can only operate in this hospital if you agree to see everyone coming through the emergency room. I always have. We have always treated. We have always had 100% access through our emergency room. Those were for emergencies. They're not the best place for primary care. We all agree with that. But we've always had 100% free access.
Okay. So, Dave, jump in here real quick if you don't mind, sir.
I'm here.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Listen, I got a question for you. Would you be shocked if I said something to the effect that I believe in that?
No, actually. And anybody who actually listens to it, it's not that hard to comprehend what he's saying. He's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
I
believe it's pretty good, too, because what he's saying is that no matter who we are, we have the right of to be healthy. But at the same time, we have to take personal responsibility for things, don't we? And also that we have the right to go see a doctor. But, doctors have the Hippocratic Oath that they follow that says, ours is first to save lives, but, you can't force me to do what I don't want to do if I don't think is right. So do you agree with that in full?
No.
No. Where do you disagree?
It's probably just the way you worded it, maybe. That particular clip has been floating all over social media because it's about everybody's entitled. It's about entitlements and the entitlements of healthcare, which is and really what he's speaking about against is all entitlements. Okay, that's really what he's speaking about there. As far as the Hippocratic Oath, if you actually ever read it, you'll find out that 99% of the doctors out there don't follow it at all, especially in today's society. And this is why a lot of the senior doctors have retired and gotten out of the practice, because they're not allowed to follow the Hippocratic Oath. And what I mean by that is one of the topics that you fight me against, but there's all the proof in the world out there, is vaccines. You have doctors out there that will not see a patient. They will refuse you care if you do not vaccinate. That's a known fact. You know? So, you know, it's like your oath is to do no harm. Well, you're giving a poison that does do harm, and it's a proven scientific fact that it does do harm. So why are you doing it? Because the big pharma paid for my college, and they got me when I was in college, and I got no choice. If I want to practice, I have to give this poison out to people, knowing that it's poison. You know, and this is what happens day to day. So as far as the whole Hippocratic Oath thing, it's a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my French. And it's the same thing with the oaths that other people take. You know, you have people that are sworn in to uphold the Constitution. Well, you don't know the Constitution. You have no idea what you're swearing into, and you're actually a tyrant to it. You know, all these so-called, you know, I took an oath and I did this, I did that. Really? Do you even know what an oath is? Do you have any idea what you're saying when you do that? Do you have any idea what your legal obligations truly are? Because quite frankly, anybody who's taken any kind of oath, if you don't know what you're doing and what you just committed to, you belong in prison.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Dave, I tell you what, let me do this before we go any further. Let me share the Hippocratic Oath with people just in case they're not familiar with it. And I'm very familiar with it. So let me go ahead and just read this to you so everybody knows exactly what it says, and we'll go from there. A Hippocratic Oath, this is the modern version because, you know, the original one was several years old. I swear to fulfill to the best of my ability and judgment this covenant. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk and gladly share such knowledge as is mine when those who are to follow. I will apply the benefit of the sick. I will apply for the benefit of the sick, all measures that are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. I will remember that there is art to medicine as well as science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. I will not be ashamed to say I don't know, nor will I fail to call in my colleagues when the skills of another are needed for a patient's recovery. I will respect the privacy of my patients, for their problems are not disclosed to me that the world may know. Most especially must I tread where care in matters of life and death. If it is given me to save a life, all thanks. But it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must be faced with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play at God. I remember that I do treat a fever chart, a cancerous growth, but a sick human being whose illness may affect the person's family and economic stability. My responsibility includes these related problems if I am to care adequately for the sick. I will prevent disease whenever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. I will remember that I remain a member of society with the special obligations to all my fellow human beings, those sound of mind and body as well as the infirm. If I do not violate this oath, may I enjoy life and art respected while I live and remembered with affection thereafter. May I always act so as to preserve the finest traditions of my calling, and may I long experience the joy of healing those who seek my help. That is the modern day version of that. Now then, Dave, as you go through here, there was a couple of things that stood out that, during our conversations. One, of course, is the use of drugs, a scientific use of, medicines that we feel will help through science, okay? And things like that. So anyway, folks, there's the oath that we call the Hippocratic Oath. So, Dave, doing that, listening to that, when they use these medications, if doctors truly feel that these are the right things to do, you're saying they're wrong?
No, it's not. Here's the issue, okay? If they followed it, remember, prevention over cure. They don't cure anyone. They only treat symptoms. They've stopped curing people since the day of the, trade a chicken, for a broken arm kind of thing. All right, back in the old days.
Okay, Dave. Now, this is technical here. Now, I know what you're saying. All they do is treat the symptoms. But if you destroy the cause of those symptoms, the disease ultimately will be gone. In some cases, depending on what the disease is, some of them there is no cure. We have to admit that right now.
No, I'd say we've had the cure for just about everything on the planet that you can think of.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. It's being kept from us.
Okay.
They are keeping the cures from us because there's no money in it. They need to keep us sick, so they treat the symptoms. Because if they cure you, guess what? You don't go to the doctors anymore, do you? So they can't make any money from you. It's all about money. It's been about money since Big Pharma got into the picture many generations ago. And this is why the older doctors have gotten out.
Okay. See, right here is where you and I get lost, okay?
Well, because I look at...
you're telling me that doctors do not want to cure patients because if they did, they wouldn't have any income coming in.
Yeah, but I'm not blaming the doctors for that. Their hands are being tied. Their hands are being bound by Big Pharma. Okay.
Okay.
It's not. Okay. I'm not saying a doctor doesn't want to help. All right. A doctor is a calling. You want to help. You want to help in the sick, so on and so forth. All right. It's a calling. Mm-hmm. The problem is, like anything else, just like it's a calling to go into politics. Then you get in and you realize, oh, wait a minute, I can't do what I thought it was really all about, and your hands are tied. So now what do? You either play the game or you get out, which means now you're out, X amount of dollars from all your education and college, and you're in the hole and all the rest. And, hey, I got to pay my bills, whatever the case may be. So, there's all kinds of things that traps that get in there. If you look throughout history, all right, and this even goes by, because a lot of people, and I've heard you do this yourself, a lot of people always fall on the polio argument. Okay, if it wasn't for vaccines, polio. Look at the recorded data. All throughout history, for every disease that you can come up with, that we know of today, and you look at the recorded data leading up to the time before a vaccine was created for it, to the time that vaccine was actually released. And you will always see, and nobody's ever been able to prove me or show me differently, because the data's on the CDC website, folks. You look at it, every single one of those diseases were on the decline before a vaccine came out. Every single one of them. The vaccine comes out after the disease has already ran its course and was dying out. So what is a vaccine? Okay. A vaccine is a small portion of the live virus. So what are you doing? You have a disease that was by nature dying out and would have no longer been in existence in several years. And you reintroduce that disease back into the population to do what? To continue its ongoing growth. It's stupid. Anybody who reads anything and has any common sense and just looks at their own data shows exactly what it is. And by definition of a so-called vaccine, look up the requirements for something to be called a vaccine. It's an action-reaction. If they introduce this, the reaction is it creates this. If it does this, then it's considered a vaccine. They will tell you also, in the same exact breath, it will not cure a damn thing. Okay? Mm-hmm. It doesn't cure a damn thing.
You're exactly right. Vaccines do not cure. They are there to give you a natural, well, it's not going to be a natural
right.
because the vaccine activates it, but it gives you, and I'm trying to be layman terms here,
the antibody.
It gives you the antivirus. You become immune to it because your body has fought it off. And when the virus, the active live virus infects you, it fights that to keep it from growing and progressing farther.
Now that's the theory.
Simple. I'm sorry?
That's the actual theory, and it does work. But what they don't tell you is, first of all, that antibody that is developed.
Dave, if it does work, it's not a theory.
Well, here's the part they leave out. Okay, the theory is you create an antibody. That's actually not even a requirement to be classified as a vaccine. That's the false teaching, number one. That's not the requirement. That's number one, that's the false teaching. Number two is that antibody that is created is such a weak version that it actually confuses your internal system for when you get the actual disease and makes the actual disease process 10 times worse for you. Most vaccines, why do you think you have to get booster shots? Is because the vaccine itself is only good for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm. It only lasts a short period of time anyway.
You know what? Now, I know several people when I was a young kid. You may not. I'm a little older than you. And I imagine there's listeners much younger than me that probably do not know anybody that ever had polio. All right? And I do. And even when I was the age to get that polio vaccine, I knew friends of ours, family members of ours that had polio. And, whether or not I would have ever gotten polio, I'm happy to say I will never know. And, the vaccines that we took at the time for polios, I don't know if they still do that or not, since polio is pretty much out of the picture here. That's an interesting question. I'll have to find that out. But whether the vaccines help me or my sisters at all, I'm going to have to say that I think I'd rather had that vaccine than taking the chance to get polio and the effects of polio of the friends and family members that I know that had it.
Yeah, actually, we had a couple of kids in our school growing up, a couple of friends of mine, actually, that had different levels of polio, different degrees of polio.
Right.
But
not everybody had crippling, deforming polio.
Right, exactly.
But, yeah.
Right, yeah, it's a varying disease, of all different kind of levels. Right. But the extreme of the cases actually died out before the vaccine was ever invented. Like I said, it was already a dying disease long before the vaccine ever came out. The only good thing about that particular vaccine is the penicillin, which was created, helps for all kinds of different things. So it wasn't just a polio type of prevention. It was a type of natural product that is found in nature. Nature heals all things. Everything on this planet was put here to help the human being, if you will, fight off all this kind of stuff.
So time out. Poison ivy never helped me do anything. Except getting a medical journal one time.
There you go. What I'm saying is there's things in nature that will counterbalance all this.
Because there's so much poison ivy in it, I can't get in there. Because if I got in there, this boy would be looking like, the Elephant Man would be beautiful compared to me.
Yeah, I actually remember you telling me that story some time ago.
Man.
Oh yeah, but no, like I said, there's so much there that is kept from the public in all categories, not just in medicine, but in every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
And you think about it. Let's think about it this way. All right, now this again is I've had climate people, scientists kind of deal, try to argue this one, and when they get done with their argument, it makes it real easy for me to bring about the real argument that puts it right in their face of why, like, let's say the dinosaurs died out, right? And this is how weird you can do this. We hear about and see in readings and writings and textbooks going all the way back to Sumerian times throughout your Bible and whatnot, right? People lived to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. Well, what changed that came about that prevented the human beings from living beyond 100 years old today? Yeah, something
bombs,
had to change.
Riots. Let's see.
No. I'm talking about natural. Not talking about if you were killed.
I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, so I mean, when they sit there and they'll try to start saying, well, at the time it was cleaner air, it was this, it was that, and all these things. Okay, that might account for knocking up a couple of those years. Remember we started 800 years and we were working our way back. So now you just cut off a couple of years. Okay, now let's come up with another argument, and this goes on through this whole progression. And then when they finally start looking at history, it's like, really, when did this all start taking place? What was the big, massive swing from these people who would live hundreds and hundreds of years and brought people's lifespan down to next to nothing? There was a catastrophic event that had to take place that affected the human race. So I play that game, and it's a long story, but really what it comes down to, and this is what a lot of people don't like to watch and follow, and this is real science. We're not talking, the craziness out there. We're talking real science. The more and more scientists are actually now signing on, especially NASA. NASA's finally getting behind this argument. Thank God. It's only taken them 30, 40 years to open their eyes. That the group that I've been following have been out there publishing, and I mean actual publishing in scientific papers, the natural progression of what we've always heard of, the pole shift. Okay, and I've spoken about this before. This is what occurred during the wipeout of the dinosaurs. See, if it's a meteor, the dinosaurs only in that general area. All right, now people say, well, if that meteor was big enough, it would cover the cloud and temperatures would drop and all this other stuff and so on and so forth. Okay.
Kind of like coming next Monday, right?
Right. Okay, so you have this meteor attack and it's going to make temperatures drop. Okay, how does that explain woolly mammoths who live in a cold climate? They all got wiped out at the same time. So how do you explain that when they're already in a cold climate? They scratch their head. They can't answer that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you trace it and follow the natural progression and the natural cycles of the sun and the natural cycles of the earth and the natural cycles of the shifting of the poles, what happens? And when they did blood samples and DNA testing, they discovered that there was an instant drop in oxygen levels by some estimates as high as 35%. The average is about 28 is what you will see on scientific papers, because on paper they like to be, they like to hold back a little bit. So between 28 and 35%. This caused an instant suffocation of the larger animals. And this is why the dinosaurs all died, pretty much standing in place. And this is why you had these large herds and everything all found together, why they all die instantly. It wasn't a cold strike. It was a lack of oxygen. They suffocated, and they discovered that now with more and more dinosaur that are being found today that are perfectly preserved, that's exactly what happened. It was a instant decrease in oxygen levels. So that time is once again upon us. So how do you help the instant drop of oxygen, which we know is going to occur with the next shift. We're in the middle of the cycle of a pole shift, which is about 85 years off. And there's going to be another massive decrease in oxygen. Well, what creates oxygen? Plant life. What do plants need to create oxygen? Carbon. What are they trying to take away from the planet right now? The carbon. They are killing us, folks. They are setting up for a mass extinction event. The government,
it's a vicious circle, isn't it? It's a vicious circle.
That's what it is. I want to
go back,
but I got to run a quick bus run, Bill. So you'll have to keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. You know, he was mentioning earlier about the how long did it take and the years and all that. And you know, one thing that I have not done a whole lot of research on, but you know, when people talk about years, I don't know if you realize that, you know, it wasn't until the 12th century, and I think this is a wonderful coincidence. It makes it easy to remember this. It wasn't until the 12th century that a 12-month calendar was actually being used. So anyone before that, you know, I'm not sure. I haven't done the research. I have to admit that. I don't know how they determined what a year was. And I do know that I do remember reading that different countries had different lengths of period that they judged the makeup of a year. So, you know, really a 12-month calendar was, like I said, created in the 12th century. So, matter of fact, it didn't always go from January 1st to December 31st. If I remember correctly, you can look this up very easily. You go to Google. I'm sure it's there. If I remember correctly, at one point, the new year actually started in March instead of January, if I remember correctly. And the reason I say that, because I was born in March, and, you know, sometime someone mentioned that to me. But I find it very interesting that, you know, even the calendar itself has changed so much. Who knows what a year was way back before the 12th century? Oh, the things that we talk about on this program. All right, let me check the chat room and see what's going on there real quick. Neil, good morning. How are you doing? How did we go down this road when Hillary Clinton's book is out? Priorities, people. Oh, I tell you what, Neil, Hillary's book is, I can't even say it with a straight face. Oh, my gosh. Wait a minute. Let me get my act together here. Oh, okay. All right. Let me try to do this without laughing. Hillary Clinton's book. Hillary Clinton's book is far from being a big issue with me. You know, I might try to get it and read it, but, you know, I would rather get critics' reports and read them instead of spending my money on a Hillary Clinton book. No offense, folks. I'm sure some people are going to love buying it. They're going to love reading it and worshiping it and probably put it on their coffee table beside the Holy Bible. But there's not going to be one in my house. I'm sorry. You know, I am not contributing in no form or fashion to that. Oh, mercy. So-called man-made global warming or climate change is the biggest hoax this nation has swallowed since the theory of evolution. You know, Mike, I appreciate your comment, guy. I do. Hey, you know, I think that I'm just wondering if there's any topic that can be brought up that people don't have various opinions on. And I know this is kind of off the wall, and it may be even sacrilegious, but, you know, I'm from Texas. And Texas, the best barbecue in the world, the best grilling in the world is beef, you know. Beef brisket. Oh, my God, it's good. And, you know, in my world, you know, nothing was better, and there was no other way to eat grilled or smoked meat other than brisket or beef ribs. And then I come to South Carolina, and you cannot find it. It is very rare that you'll find somewhere that has barbecued or smoked beef brisket and ribs. It's all pork. Now, I'm not saying it's all. I did say all, but there are places that have beef. But, again, it's a matter of where you're from, what you're presented, what you're accustomed to, what history you're taught. And, it's like this memorial thing, up north. They have the Yankee museums. They have the Yankee monuments. And when we do our road trips, when we go up north, it's amazing to see how great those people were and the just cause and all of that. And then you come down here right now in the rest of the South and in places, we have the opposite. Now, some places we do have statues that honor all of those who served no matter which army they were in. Okay? Now then, I have never even thought of that. I wonder if we're going to have people that want to tear down those monuments because the Confederacy soldiers and people that served are on the same monument. And the names are intermingled on some of them. You have a list of those that served from communities in the Southern Army, and you have some that served in the Union Army. So I wonder if they'll want to cut that plaque in half and take care of the... You know what? I had never thought about that until now, and I've never heard anyone else talk about that. I just created another hot potato, didn't I? What did I do? What did I do? Well, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. And now that we kind of got on that subject, let's dwell on it just a little bit more, and then I'm going to shut her down this morning on that topic. California, they have some gatherings, rallies coming up that they're thinking about trying to cancel because of what took place in Charlotte, and several other states do too, by the way. But California lawmakers have asked the National Park Service to rescind permit for San Francisco's, quote, quote, alt-right rally. Now then, of course, I have opinion on that. You know what? It's in a national park. A national park, my humble opinion. Now, this is my humble opinion. A national park, to me, is a place you go and admire the beauty. You go and admire the history. It's a place where people can go and relax and enjoy the scenery, enjoy Mother Nature, if it's one of these nature places like the Grand Canyon. It's a place where you can go in and give some deep thought about what happened there or the beauty that's there. If it's a event like maybe in some of the battlefields, it's a place to go to reminisce, to think about what those people must have gone through, to try to understand what their fighting was really about. There's if you go through Virginia and if you go through some of the other states, you'll find that like Gettysburg, okay? Gettysburg has all the battlefields around there, all the memorials, all the monuments that say who fought here, how many troops did this side lose, how many troops did this side lose, how many were injured here, how many were injured here. And, nowhere does it really suggest or give glory to either side. It's a historical park. Now then, I'm going to use that one as my example. You know, I do not think those grounds are anywhere for a protest of any kind. It presents history in a neutral manner. Okay, it may be in the South, but it just so happens that's where that battle took place. The Grand Canyon, you know, and this we're in California, the park where they want to have the gathering. I don't believe they should allow that there because of what it is, what they stand for. My own personal opinion. There's a lot of other places that they can go. We don't need our national parks, our monuments, things like that destroyed because some asinine people want to get out there and have a fight, stab each other, shoot each other, run each other with a car or truck. We don't need that stuff in our national parks. People go there for totally different reasons. I wish people would honor that. And I can't help but say that I'm afraid they won't. I'm afraid they won't. Just my own humble opinion on that. Okay, and folks, see right there what happens when you enter the chat room and put down your opinion, or you call in, you get to express your opinion, and I get to express mine, and then we can talk about it. Okay, let's see here. Neil says, the one Pelosi is calling white supremacist rally is majority brown people. If white nationals show up, won't be happy. So tired of discussing on the fickless hate group, and why do we give them the time of day? There are few, very few, that don't do anything but talk. Antifa is more dangerous to our First Amendment rights and safety. Neil, my friend, I have to agree with you overall. I do. But people do get involved, and it is brought forth to the public, and when it does, we either ignore it. You know, I'm going to stop right there. You know, sometimes I think if we would ignore it, and Neil, I'll bet you'll agree with this. Sometimes I think if we ignore it, they might stop faster. You know what I mean? I think if we ignore them sometimes, maybe they wouldn't have as many of them because they don't get the attention. They don't get the attention. And I just, maybe, maybe our attention on all of these things are one of the reasons we have so many of them take place. Maybe because the attention the press puts on it and the days and days and days of writing and discussions on it, well, Dave, Mike, Neil, everyone, guess what? Guess what? As of today, my discussions on what happened in Charlottesville comes to an end. Because to be honest with you, when I was working on this morning's show, when I pulled up to look up the up-to-date news, Charlottesville.
Hey, Bill.
Maybe we need to shut. Yes, Dave, how are you?
Yeah, good. I'm back. Yeah, I agree with Neil as well. There's, if we stop doing all this coverage, at least won't get any recruitment off it. You're still going to get the people out there that are going to follow the fringe groups or the hate groups or whatever you want to call them. But at least we don't have to give them.
Be honest, Dave.
kudos.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but real quick, be honest with you. I don't think too many of those hate groups listen to our show. Do you?
No, I don't think so either. But here's my real issue with all this. For the last few weeks, I don't know if anybody's actually even noticed, but I've been staying away from politics. I've been focusing on specific topics, focusing on, doing more research, and of course my law and stuff that I've always, that's an ongoing study, folks. That's something you do once you get into. You do it your whole life. There's always something new out there.
Yeah.
But have tried to get away from the politics. So yesterday, as an example, I turned on, and this is the real issue. I said, let me just go see what's happening. So I turned on the Fox channel, and it happened to be the outnumbered, where the girls are sitting on the couch. And within...
Hey, Dave, can you do this for me? I think we're fixing to get into a deep discussion, and we're about 3 minutes before the top of the hour. Can we go ahead and do our break and let's regroup and get into that discussion?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that, and that way we don't have to interrupt for the break. How's that go?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Folks, we'll be back in about 2-3 minutes at the most, and we'll reconvene this discussion here in the Pickle Barrel. In the meantime, share the message that we're having discussions here. Tell everybody to jump in the Pickle Barrel, either on Facebook Live or at AmericanPatriotRadio.com, and they can also partake in our discussions. We'll be right back here in the Pickle Barrel.
Welcome back. You're in the Pickle Barrel with Bill Pickle.
All right. Welcome back. You are in the Pickle Barrel. We're in good discussions. We've been in some somewhat heated discussions already this morning. We've been in a lot of just congenial what-ifs this morning, and we've gone down history lane this morning. Right now, we got Dave on the line, and we're talking about some other issues, and we'd like for you to join us, 712-770-4160. Put in the magic PIN number, 263-151#. And if you'd like to enter our discussions, all you got to do is hit #6, and then you'll be there live. You can join us, or you can join in the chat room on Facebook Live in the Pickle Barrel, American Patriot Radio. And or you can go to AmericanPatriotRadio.com, our website, and join the discussions, join the group so you'll know what's coming up and what's happening here at American Patriot Radio, where it's never a dull moment. Right now, we got Dave here. Dave, we're back on air here, and let's just start from the beginning on this, if you don't mind, and we'll see if we can't draw some of our audience into it also. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. What I was saying is I had taken a break from politics, stopped watching the news channels and the brainwashing and the nonsense. Well, yesterday, for whatever reason, I decided, let me just go see what's going on Fox. So I turned it on, and it was outnumbered, the ladies on the couch there. Right. The lady who was speaking was one I do not recognize, so I don't know if she's someone new or just was a guest for that day, but usually the guest is the guy in the middle, that sits between the ladies. I had it on for less than a minute, and this is why. The first thing I hear when I turned on the channel was this woman who I, again, do not recognize, so I don't know the name to tell you her name.
Okay.
She was saying how, yes, a lot of our founders were slave owners, but the Civil War, the South was fighting against their country for the right to keep their slaves. I had to change the channel. I turned it off right there and then. Now, Bill, let me ask you a question.
Because of the comment of their country.
That's step number one. So you're catching on quick, Bill. And what was the second part?
I'm not as dumb as you think I am.
No, you've been doing very well in your classes as long as that we've been together. For those who don't know me, they call me the law guy around here. Okay, for over 10 years
that's the
now.
nice things they call you, Dave.
Well, yeah, they call me a lot of things. That's for sure. For the last 10 years, I've been preaching how important it is for the correction of our verbiage, because they've stolen our language from us. All right, and this was a perfect example of mainstream media continuing the lie narrative. Now, what am I saying was a lie in that quick little one sentence that made me change the channel? Well, Bill brought up one. They were talking about their country. They mentioned the word Civil War, and it was all about keeping slaves. So in that 1 minute, there was 3 lies presented, which is the brainwashing that has been going on. And when you ask these protesters, and you go out there that want to topple all these statues over and stuff, why are you doing this? Why do you think this is wrong? And they will tell you those same 3 arguments. This goes all the way up into colleges and universities. They even got a university that has a class that's specifically titled The Civil War. Well, let me give you some facts, folks. Number 1, we've never had a civil war here in the Union. Not one. The Supreme Court even declares it the war between the states. Now you have to pick up your law dictionary and look up, well, what does that mean? First of all, the United States of America is not, nor ever has been, nor ever will be a country. But let's stick to the time period. Even in the beginning of the constitutions, what did they do? A more perfect union. It's a union of individual countries. So the South was not in any way, shape, or form fighting against its country. There was no breach of allegiance. This is why it was not considered a civil war, and this is why at the international courts, as well as our very own Supreme Court, declares it a war between the states, because by word of legal definition, a state is a country. All right? So we never had a civil war. That's lie number 1. They were fighting against their country. No, their country was their individual states that they were members of. So that's lie number 2. And the issue of slavery wasn't brought about until Lincoln brought it up in 1883. What year did the war start? Slavery was not a part of the issue at all. The issue had to do with succession from the Union. That's what the fight was all about. Mm-hmm. Which they have the legal, lawful right to do. They still have that, but it's much harder today to do. Mm-hmm. So the people who are all angry, let's rip down these statues, have been taught and brainwashed that there was a civil war, that we've always been one big giant country, and that they were fighting to keep slaves. Well, you tell those 3 lies long enough, it becomes fact in the generational's brain. All right, because it's been going on for generations. This lie has been told over and over again. So they think they're doing something good. And if it truly was a civil war, if it truly was a breach of allegiance to their rightful country, if it truly was all about keeping slaves, then I would be the first one in line to pull down these statues myself. Yeah. But that's not the case.
Well, Dave, you are absolutely right. And, when you stop back and look, you think about what took place. And this, matter of fact, I've got some notes over here I'll disband because we're talking about it now. Thank you very much, Dave. This whole thing about slavery, yes, we've got to admit, Dave, that slavery had something to do with it, but it was not the overbearing reason. So we may disagree there a little bit, but that was part of it. But again, that in itself was a state right. The state allowed slavery. And now let's go back. I want to go back a little bit more here. That war the Civil War, folks. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but, there was, in this country, 630,000 soldiers were killed or wounded in 4 years of that war. Now, stop and think now. Do you believe that a war over slavery itself would had that many people be willing to go and fight and die? I don't think so, Dave. I don't think so. And the one thing, Dave and I disagree on a bunch of things. But on the reason for the Civil War, we agree. I mean, folks, we agree. The Civil War was not about slavery as a total. It was a small fraction of the actual reason. And that reason, some people did. They don't care what the states' rights were or anything. They were going to have slaves. Some didn't. But anyway, the bottom line is, people need to understand, the 10th Amendment, for those who don't know, the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, and I pulled that up, and let me see, here it is right here. The 10th Amendment, which was ratified in 1791, by the way. Listen to this before you jump to any conclusions. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Quote, unquote. All right? But then there's also the supremacy clause of Article 6 of the Constitution, which says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything to the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary withstanding.
Do you know what that part? That's an important one, Bill. That's an important one that a lot of people misunderstand.
Yes, it is.
Read that one again.
Okay, listen, folks. Listen very, very close, because there are some little tidbits here that people grab hold of and use those as the purpose and definition. So listen real close. This Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding.
Now, there's the key word in this, and I put it in the chat room. Article 6, you got to understand, when the Union was formed and the individual countries, i.e. the states, joined the Union, they formed the federal government for the purpose of one thing, treaty. That was step number one. Number two, the purpose of the power of treaty was given up was because the federal government was put in place to represent the Union for trade and market purposes on a global level. This is why the USA is classified as a country, because it has the power to treaty. It's a slim definition of the word country, okay? And it was done on purpose for giving us the power to act as one on the international level. The word there, and the key word again, is treaty.
By the way, Dave, which, by the way, I think we have to agree was a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. It was absolutely a good thing.
Absolutely.
The organic is very well thought out. What we refer to as the organic Constitution, which is your first 10 amendments. It was very well thought out. It was a real, true republic, a de jure, which is Latin for right, compared to today's democracy under Reconstruction, which is considered de facto, meaning not of right. The key word there, like I said, is treaty. A treaty, when the states gave up that power to treaty, the agreement of the contract, remember, everything comes down to contractual law today. Even back then, it had to do with the power of contract. You have the right to unlimited contracts, the common law, the right to power and authority for unlimited contracts. That power of treaty is what Article 6 is talking about. Because the states gave up the right to treaty for themselves, that whatever decision the United States made in a treaty agreement, those states, by contract, agreed to be held accountable and have to uphold those rights. Mm-hmm. That's all it is in reference to, though, folks. This is where people get confused. They think that, see, the federal government's got power over the states, and the states have to do everything the federal government says. No.
Wrong.
Only when it comes to the power and authority of a treaty. When a treaty is signed in good faith with the USA and another country or another individual, another entity, that all states are bound by that agreement. That's all it's saying. Nothing more, nothing less. But people like to think that it incorporates all this other nonsense when it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, folks, now, Dave and I are having this conversation here, and you hear us carrying on a logical, clear, understandable conversation, and like some of the stuff we get into. But I want to tell you what, when you start looking at the Civil War, and I don't care what you've been told over the last 2 or 3 days, and I don't care what you heard being yelled at the riots and in Charlottesville and everywhere else, all the anti-protests and the protests going on. Folks, listen to me. Listen to me. You've got to understand, and you got to look at the facts, okay? The point of slavery back in the 1860s was just an example of what the states were using as the government's, when I say the government, I'm talking about the federal government, overstepping states' rights. That was the biggest example. That was so right in your face. Now, let me clarify. I think slavery is a sin. I'm totally against it. And yes, there were thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that were killed, wounded, enslaved, that it was a terrible thing. That is now part of history. The point now is that the states still need to be fighting, whether in court, wherever it may lead us. And I'm not professing war. Please don't say Bill Pickle said we ought to have another civil war. Bill Pickle is not saying that. But I hate to say it. I don't know if it'll be a declared war or what, but there's a lot of things mounting, and it scares the bejesus out of me, and I don't even want to go down that line. But, the war was fought over states' rights and the limits of federal power over the states. Period. Now then, Dave, I want to say something here, and you let me know if you agree or not, because I'm on this topic. I'm really emphatic, and I want your input and explain to me why I'm wrong if I'm wrong. But the issue that it was fought over slavery per se, but the issue was really who decided whether slavery was acceptable I'm trying to get the right words here to make this more understandable. Whether local or the state issues per se would be decided by the states, local institutions, or that place in Washington, D.C., that faraway Ozland, if you want to call it that. And, and folks, I'm sorry, this is not about semantics. It's not. States' rights is guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. Okay? No matter what you think of the Civil War, there were 11 states. I think I'm right there. I have to count them real quick. I just pulled that number out. I think it's 11. 11 states seceded from the Union. Some of those states were in the process. They were in the process already of trying to limit or get rid of slavery. But Big Brother had to step in. Big Brother had to step in. And look what happened. Now, where am I going with this? Where do you draw the line? Where do you say that this article that says states are controlling what takes place in their country, the country of Florida, the country of South Carolina, the country of Virginia, the country of New York, the country of California, the country of Illinois. You notice I got the liberal and the conservative people all mixed into one. They have the right of it's bequeathed to them by their country. United States of America is just that. Dave, you said it earlier. The United States of a country of America is not the country. It's the Union, just like the European Union, where all these European countries once belonged. You know, so they're breaking off. So when people say country, and I know I say it a lot, you know, I'll be the first to admit it. I say it a lot. You know, I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud of our country. You know, it's a generic term that people are using these days, and Dave will jump on me every time he hears me say it. I get my hand slapped. But he's right. We are a union of states that make up the United States of America. Now, some people say that the Civil War was fought and the South was trying to destroy the United States of America. Now then, in my humble opinion, I think that there's some truth to be said about that. You know, these 11 states decided they did not want to be part of the United States of America again any longer. And so they attempted to withdraw. And the Union said, wait a minute. We can't allow that. You got to stay part of this group, you know. After all, you got all that cotton down there. You got all that farmland. You got all that seacoast. You got all that tobacco and all that bourbon. We need that. So we're not going to let you go. So no matter how you look at it, and Dave, again, you know, I want to tell you, and you know this, you know I believe that But the war was about principle, people. State sovereignty and the right of secession, the right to govern your own state by your own laws, their own state constitution, their laws, and that's what it was about. And anybody else that says it was totally about slavery, you're wrong. You're wrong. Dave, unless you got something else to say, I'm through with it. Your last input on this topic.
No, you did good. You covered it well. But we keep bringing up the one topic that we don't discuss too often, and I want to bring us a little bit further into that one. That is the slavery.
Okay.
Slavery is not what we've been taught it was. So many people today, when they hear the word slavery, the only thing they think of is the black. Folks, long before the black man was enslaved, whites have been enslaved. Look at your Bible. Look at, throughout history, your gladiators. These were slaved individuals. They were sold, bought and sold on the market. Slavery is not a color issue. Slavery is an issue of wealth. Now, that's very important to understand that. Let me say that again. Slavery is an issue of wealth. When the mistaught history or the misguided history, people think, because they just haven't researched it, they believe that the white man went over to the African shores and kidnapped the blacks and drug them into these ships and brought them back to the Union to be enslaved. None of that never happened, folks. The truth is, those ships were actually ran by the Islamic nation. They were Muslim captains. Our battle with Islam goes all the way back to the Barbary pirates, but that's another topic. What was happening was those individuals were sold into slavery by their own chiefs and leaders, kings and queens in Africa, the different tribes. They were actually sold. When they were brought over to our shores, and they were brought all over the world, it wasn't just here in the United States. They were, slaves were sold all over the globe. What people forget is one of the very first slave owners here in the United States was actually a black man. Very few people know that. He was one of the wealthier individuals, and he was actually the first person as documented, one of the first winners of the bid of the first slave, and he himself was a black man. Okay, so this is part of the truth in history that is kept from people. So we go by this brainwashing indoctrination we've been taught generation after generation. White is evil, blacks were enslaved, without knowing the truth about slavery. How Civil War, which we've never had a civil war, it's a war between states. Yes, it's semantics, but semantics is what they brainwash us with. If you don't know the truth, you're going to be easily swayed into a different position. And that's just a brief portion of slavery. Now, that's to get it here to the Union. What happened once it came here? We all know, yes, our founding fathers, many of them, a large percentage of them, were in fact slave owners. No doubt about that. That was common practice. And again, it had nothing to do with color, and it still doesn't today. There is more white slavery that takes place today than there is black. People, again, they don't want to admit that. To stay away from the Reconstruction, which by law, that action of law enslaves all USA citizens, but that's a whole nother legal argument, and we're not going there today.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been down that path before, but we do have a few new listeners, and that's why I wanted to mention it. When it came to the issues of slavery, again, it's wealth. Here in the States, what was taking place was people think that Lincoln, and this is one of those famous arguments, and I come down on the side of on the same side as Judge Napolitano. Everybody should know that name by now. Lincoln was one of the greatest tyrants to ever serve in office. And what people don't understand, they'll run around and they'll talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. That never freed the slaves. In fact, the action of freeing the slaves, what people don't realize is the North only freed, and again, they didn't have the power to do so, the Southern slaves. They never freed the slaves of the North. Matter of fact, it wasn't until 1991. New Jersey was the last country to hold out, or make the, not hold out, but make the correction on their books. Okay, there's a lot of crazy laws that are still on the books, right? It wasn't until 1991 that finally New Jersey removed the lawful right to own slaves from their books. Lincoln never freed the slaves, folks. He offered freedom to the Southern slaves that if you could get up here to a northern state, and if you would be willing to fight for us, we would allow you your freedom. He never freed the slaves. That's, again, another misteaching. And remember, folks, history is written by the victors. This is why they brainwash you and make you think it's a civil war, when it wasn't. That it was all about slavery, when it wasn't. That Lincoln freed the slaves, when he didn't. Okay, you starting to see a pattern here? You see what's really taking place? The truth has been hidden for so many generations that we can't even if you, like, Candy and Mike had a big oral argument the other day on air about who to blame. And Mike says it's all the media's fault. It's a 50-50. It's the media as well as the educational system, ever since the government took over the education system. Those are, yes, where the majority of all the responsibility lies. But there is also self-responsibility. I don't give a whole large percentage of the self-responsibility of getting your own education because, quite frankly, for somebody new who's just starting in this, and folks, I've been doing this for over 10 years, educating on the Constitution and the laws. For somebody just starting out, there is so much false information out there. There are so many conspiracy theories that are floating around out there that it's very, very difficult for one who is trying to educate themselves to find the truth. It has been so well hidden, only because you don't know where to look. So for those of you who are just starting into this education of yourself and re-education, as I say, to re-educate yourself and maybe to discover some of the truths of which I've spoken about today. The first place I want you to do, and the first thing I want you to keep in mind, is to understand any of this. Don't use your regular dictionaries. Anything that requires a signature is a contract. The Constitution is a contract. It has signatures on it. Okay? It's contractual law is what we're speaking about. To understand what that document is truly saying, you must use a law dictionary to translate it, because the common language, the Webster Dictionary, has in most cases, when it comes to contract law, a complete and different definition to that word or phrase. Bouvier's 1856, Volume 1 and Volume 2 are the law dictionaries. They're free from Google Books online. They're searchable books, so you can put a word or phrase in there and search the book and read it. It's easy, super, super easy to read, follow, and understand. Read it as a novel. There is so much information in there, including case information that will relay you back to other articles and links in there that will bring you to further your studies. And this, actually, if you ask any sitting judge out there, what's the one law definition book that they refer back to? And 9 out of 10 times you will get the same answer. Bouvier's 1856. Because it's got the most clearest, simple language incorporated into its definition. Black's Law Dictionary is the second one that comes up. The problem is, the newer the dictionary, the law dictionary, the more complicated. They didn't change the definition. They just add a whole bunch of those $5 college words in there that not everybody can understand. to complicate things so you don't get to the truth. But if you use, just like the judges do, the 1856 version, Beaubier, plain simple language, here's the word, here's the definition, you can't get any simpler than that. If you start doing that, you'll begin to correct your verbiage, which is what I've been about for 10 years, correction of verbiage. You'll start to have your eyes opened. You'll be able to point out and see the brainwashing that takes place day in and day out in school at all levels from pre-K through university, the mainstream media. You constantly hear these terms, Civil War, when it wasn't. Constantly hear these words, the country, when it's not. You know, all these key words that you hear over and over and over again become very clear to you. And you can just shake your head. And that is why it is so important to begin your research in the right location. Stay off the conspiracy sites. Stay away from these nut jobs in the freedom movement. There's plenty of them out there. Just do your own research and start with the book that everyone uses. All your judges, your Congress people should be using, and that's the Law Dictionary. You do that, and you will find a very exciting journey into knowledge that you've never discovered before. With that, I say we close out the topic, Bill. I know you want to move on as well. What's next on the agenda? And if there's any questions, folks, please call in or put them in the chat room.
There you go. I tell you, I got a dispute with you there. Don't lay off your conspiracy theorists or your ding dong people. I mean, if you do, Dave, you're my friend, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. If you do lay off that stuff, you won't listen to half what Dave says.
Well, that's true, too.
Still my friend.
Remember, folks, hey, Bill, just always keep in mind, it's only considered conspiracy theory till it's proven fact. And how many times throughout history, especially over the last 20 years, have we found out that those so-called conspiracies weren't conspiracies at all?
Yeah, and I will tell you this, in the same phrase, it's only truth when you can provide the truth, the facts. So remember those things, folks. Okay, this is a fact, and it's a theory too, I guess. California, California is not that well known as a GOP haven. I wouldn't think anybody would disagree with that comment, would you, Dave? It's not one of the bastions of the Republican Party. However, they have had Republican presidents. They have. And right now, they did have somewhat of a pretty solid Tea Party. Different people will give different definitions of what the Tea Party is. Some people would call it a conservative group. Others would call it a wingnut group, so far over to the right side that if the earth was flat, they would fall off the edge if they didn't have their hands on the edge of it to keep from falling off. Some of them would think they're just crazy in some aspects. Now, I know, and I have spoken before several Tea Party organizations. However, I will tell you this. A lot of those Tea Party organizations have disappeared. They've disappeared. There may be 2 or 3 that still profess that they're in the Tea Party, but, that has kind of disappeared in a lot of areas. You don't hear it as much as we used to. Now then, there is still a pretty active Tea Party, though, folks, if you weren't aware of it, in California. And, and they've got a big governor's race coming up. And, they are looking at the fact that the GOPers there are now trying to sell themselves to the Tea Party there and trying to get the Tea Party more active than they were in the past, because they see that perhaps they have and I think this is a snowball's chance, but they have a chance to continue their growth in California, get a Republican governor, blah, 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 and they want to turn things around out there. So you're seeing GOP candidates now that are starting to woo, for lack of a better time, flirt with, congeal with, whatever you want to call it, the Tea Party, conservatives, because they want to turn things around there in California. Now then, good for them. Good for them. Now, the Los Angeles Times poll released last year, it was in 2015, I think it was, found that 48% of Republicans in California support the Tea Party movement to some degree. So assemblymen like Travis Allen and John Cox, who, by the way, was active this past weekend out there trying to prove their pro-Trump credentials. So that, they're really getting wild out there, in California. But they are looking at trying to be more active in California. And, if you look back over the last several years, the Californian Tea Party has just kind of like the stock market in the 30s, just kind of took a nosedive. And so they've had to go through some pretty big changes. The Tea Party's influence in the state GOP has appeared to start coming back out of woodwork, if you want to put it that way. And so a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe this will transfer over to some of the more well-renowned Tea Party states and maybe get the Tea Party up and running again. Or let me say this, it's always been here. Let's say more active, more out there than it has been in the last few years. Now, they were somewhat active in Trump's campaign, but other than that, I'll be honest with you, in this area here, I have not, I did see the chairman of the local Tea Party at the Republican meeting last Monday, a few days ago, when our state attorney general was there to talk. And be honest with you, I have not seen anything on social media, nothing in the newspapers, no phone calls, nothing about the local and county area PD regional, the whole 11 county area. I have not heard a word about the Tea Party in a very long time. So maybe they're looking at this situation we're in right now as a way to bring that group back to life. Some people say yay, some people say why, some people says who cares, but so what? Anyway. So I just wanted to bring that up since we haven't heard that name in a while and share that with you. Corporate chiefs, we've had this thing that's taken place over the last few days that we've had a lot of people backing off of their vocal support for Trump. Some of them are backing off with their financial support. Some people are saying that he's gone absolutely crazy. Some people say they love crazy. And, he's revitalizing his campaign. And, folks, I'll be honest with you, I don't think what he's doing is so much about issues. I think it's him trying to revitalize his image before those that elected him to office. I hate to put it that way, but, by the way he's talking and by the way he's acting, I don't think that he is, and God, help me. I hope I am wrong. I don't think he's really all that concerned right now about a lot of the issues. I think he's more concerned about him losing the image that he has garnered during the campaign, and this is coming back, and it is biting him in the behind as he's going down the road. We've had that group of corporate chiefs that's pulled away from him now. And, and some people will say, well, so what? They're just there for their money. They're there for their corporations anyway. Well, if we want to continue making America great, despite what you want to think and what you want to happen, you got to have these corporations, folks. They're the ones that provide the businesses, the investments into business, to create the businesses they have, to expand those businesses they have, that create more jobs and more opportunities for those that seek work and the chance to do more in their lives. It's a dog eating world out there. And I hate to say it, but, we need business. We need big business. We need small business. But, most of these small businesses start because somebody got a lot of experience, made a decent living, learned some know-how and some ambition, and started the idea of breaking away. I'm about to sneeze here, excuse me. About to break away from that company and start their own company, albeit much smaller. It will be theirs. They are the corporate gurus at that time. They are the boss. They do their own thing. And a lot of people that have broken away to start their own business and their own thing have become very big companies themselves. And in some ways have become what they left. But the bottom line is, I think some of the people that have supported Trump are getting a little weary, getting a little tired. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. Now then, there will be a lot of conversation about this. There will be a lot of contempt about it. But, I think that it was coming. It's been coming. Here we go in the chat room. We can stop this progression before it's too late if they, the leaders, rulers, would just come out with the truth like I have done this morning, because the real truth will set us free. Okay, talking about the same topic up there. Okay. But anyway, I think Trump himself has stayed out of, well, I think he's pretty much attempted to stay out of sight, but he hasn't done that totally. Let's put it that way. I think that he visually he has been pretty much out of sight, but Twitter account he's still there like crazy. And I think that these businesses that are standing up and saying, that hey, they've had enough. We're going to get out of here. Just like his council. You hear this council that just left. You know what? They left before they were pushed out. They left before "you're fired" came at them. So is it a great loss? I don't think so. It might even have been a benefit to people. It might even have been a benefit to Trump. I don't know. Time will tell us. But I think that what was it called? The strategy and Oh, gosh. The strategy. Can't even think of the name of it now. Strategy and Policy Group. So simple. Gee whiz, Bill. The Strategy and Policy Group, which Stephen Schwarzman was on that, I believe, and a couple others, had that big news conference about it and everything. I think that all of them together are just they're playing their own political game there. I think that's all it is, their own little political game. Okay, let's see here. Just throw in some local stuff here real quick. It's a little late to do this now, since I really meant to do this at the beginning of the show before school opened. But folks, I want to remind everybody, not just here in South Carolina, but all over the country, that school doors are opening. A lot of them in our area, particularly. Today is the first day of school. And they got different schedules for different areas around the state, and I'm sure where you live is different schedules also. But people, please, 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 please. I live about 2 blocks from a big school. And every day in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, people are going up and down this street 60 miles an hour. I usually do the speed limit or maybe 5 miles over. I'll be honest with you, I don't always hold it right on the speed limit. But I've had people come up to me and flash their lights and honk their horns, get the hell out of the way, let me through, when, chill. Oh, by the way, when they shoot around me and they shoot up there and they get to that red light, I pull up right beside them because they're sitting there dead still, just like they would if they'd waited and got there with me, And oftentimes I get ahead of them because the person of them want to turn left or something. They can't go on anyway, so it's on you. But school days are open. Be careful. Don't put kids' lives in danger, okay? And pay attention to the buses and the cars that are turning in and out of the school. Be careful, okay? I just wanted to throw that in there as a public service announcement. All right. Gosh, I don't want to get in that topic. We have no time for that. That'll take at least an hour. League of Women Voters. Believe it or not, I saw this name come up this week. League of Women Voters. I haven't seen much about that in a long time. But the Florence League of Women Voters are going to be celebrating Women's Equality Day with a 2 p.m. showing of Iron-Jawed Angels at the Florence County Library Saturday, August the 26th. And I might just show up to that. No, I can't. I'm going to be out of town. What am I talking about? I won't show up to that. I wish I could. I'd be interested in going there and watching that. Let's see here. What else? We got a couple of minutes here. Let me see if I can throw something else in here real quick before we go. Oh, the big school board. This is another local thing, folks, but you need to listen to it because it's happening all around us. You have a lot of school districts that are trying to do things that you wonder why they're doing it. Whoa, we can't afford that. That costs millions more than we have. The design's not good. It's not helping the people that need help, all that kind of stuff, okay? Well, the school board in the Florence District 1 school district here was proposing to build 3 or 4 new schools. They want to replace just about everything that's out there. And, well, they've decided, after a lot of public outcry, that maybe they need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe they need to go back and think, well, wait a minute. We've had a lot of politicians that have disagreed with our plans, the county and city. They've had a lot of citizens disagree with it. They had this big public hearing, and there was hundreds of people. It was a filled-up auditorium. I had a meeting that night, too. I couldn't go, but I listened to what I could later that people recorded and all that, and I looked at the photos, and I've spoken at that place many times, and they had a full crowd, which means they had about 400, 500 people there, standing room only. And they broke out in little work sessions, and I guess they decided maybe we better listen to these folks. There's been enough of them saying things and complaining and getting in touch with us since then that we better just delay our action, go back to the planning board and look at all these various proposals and see what we can do. All right, folks, right there is evidence you getting involved makes a difference. And it starts, folks. I'm going to reiterate this, and I'm going to beat this until I'm dead, but this drum's going to be beat every chance I get. It all starts at the local level. Local level is where your baby politicians are born. Those babies become adolescents, and they get on the city council and county council, school boards, etc. And then they decide, well, they want to play in the minor league. They're going to move on up into county politics. They're going to get into the upper minors. They're going to get into state politics, and then they move up to feds. So, we got to train them right. We got to wean them from this I'm it theory that they have. It's the people that matters. We're the ones that count. They work for us. And here, again, is a great example, and I want to thank every single person that went to those meetings, that took place in the discussions, that took place in the work and discussions after the meeting to bring this about. Congratulations to every one of you. Thank you. And you're proven, and I hope, well, first of all, you've proven the system works, that you got to get their attention. And I hope your attention span continues until they follow through and make the right decisions for the people here. And folks, when I say this, I'm talking about here in your city, here in your state, here when you go vote for federal folks. We're all one big family. We may be individual states. We may be individual counties and cities, but we all still make up the great state in which you live and the great union that we are a member of, the United States of America. And we still, and I believe this sincerely right here, and I believe I have the brain that helps me see it clearly, we still have a lot to do, but we still have the ability to do what needs to be done. And those are my parting words for this morning in the Pickle Barrel. I want to thank all of you for being here this morning, taking part in the discussions, and I hope that you have heard and participated and got something out of the program that you can carry forth with you. And I hope you'll be back here tomorrow morning in the Pickle Barrel at the same time, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on AmericanPatriotRadio.com and American Patriot Radio on Facebook Live. And we'll see you tomorrow. Dave, take it away, sir. What's coming up?
No reason to change that dial. Plenty still yet to come in this day on AmericanPatriotRadio.com. Everything from Kids Corner, Happy Hour, Chuck Skull's Golden Age of Radio, and of course, if you're up later on in the evening throughout the midnight hour, replays of today's broadcast in case you missed any. So, till next time, everybody, keep your eyes open and be safe out there.
Have a great one, folks. We'll see you tomorrow in the Pickle Barrel. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. You've been in The Pickle Barrel with author, speaker, commentator, and show host, Bill Pickle.